The hum of the refrigerator was the loudest sound in Amelia Vance's small, meticulously clean apartment. It was a sterile, almost clinical hum, a constant companion that underscored the profound quiet of her evenings. At 38, Amelia's life had settled into a rhythm of predictable monotony, a stark contrast to the vibrant symphony she had once imagined for herself. Each night as the clock on her microwave ticked towards 7, she would begin her ritual, a single chicken breast seasoned precisely a small portion of steamed broccoli and a modest serving of quinoa. Tonight was no different. The scent of garlic and herbs, usually comforting, felt almost melancholic in the silence. She moved with unpracticed efficiency, her movements economical, her expression placid. There was a quiet grace to her, a testament to years spent perfecting the art of self-containment. Her hands, long and elegant, sliced the chicken into even pieces. She didn't listen to music, didn't watch television during dinner. The meal was a necessity, a fuel, not an experience. As she lifted a fork to her mouth, her gaze drifted to a framed photograph on a nearby shelf. It was an old picture, the colors slightly faded, showing a much younger Amelia. Her hair was pulled back in a wild, unkempt ponytail, her eyes sparkling with an untamed energy, a wide, unburdened smile on her face. Beside her, a group of college friends, equally boisterous, raised their hands in a celebratory gesture. That Amelia, the one brimming with audacious dreams and boundless enthusiasm, felt like a ghost from a distant past, a forgotten melody in her current quiet composition. She remembered the endless nights in college fueled by instant coffee and ambition, drawing up intricate business plans, her dorm room walls plastered with flowcharts and market analyses. Her professors had called her a prodigy, her ideas groundbreaking, her drive unparalleled. Amelia Vance, you're going to change the world. Her favorite economics professor, Dr. Albright, had declared, his eyes alight with genuine belief. But the world, or at least her corner of it, had remained stubbornly unchanged. The dreams had over time been meticulously folded away, tucked into the deepest recesses of her mind, replaced by the safer, more predictable path of a mid-level corporate analyst at Sterling and Finch, a sprawling financial firm known for its cutthroat environment and glacial upward mobility. The irony wasn't lost on her. She analyzed market trends for a living, predicted the rise and fall of companies, yet her own trajectory had flatlined. Her office cubicle, with its beige walls and synthetic carpet, was a metaphor for her existence, functional, unremarkable, and devoid of true inspiration. Her colleagues often saw her as diligent, perhaps a little too reserved, but rarely as someone with the sharp, incisive mind that could dissect complex financial models in minutes or devise a revolutionary business strategy from scratch. She preferred it that way, a self-imposed invisibility that offered a strange kind of peace. It was easier to blend in, to exist without the pressure of expectations, especially her own. After dinner, Amelia meticulously washed her single-plate fork and knife, placing them precisely on the drying rack. She then retreated to her small study, a corner of her living room partitioned by a tall bookshelf filled with business textbooks, mostly untouched for years, and a few well-worn literary classics. On her desk sat her work laptop, its glow a familiar, almost comforting presence. Tonight she was reviewing data for a quarterly report, the numbers blurring into an uninspiring pattern of predictable growth and minor fluctuations. As she typed, a small, almost imperceptible tremor ran through her left hand, a habit she'd developed when she was particularly stressed or deeply focused. It was a minor thing, easily hidden, but it was a remnant of the fierce intensity that once defined her. A brief image flashed in her mind, presenting a bold, unconventional marketing plan to a panel of venture capitalists, their expressions shifting from skepticism to genuine intrigue. The memory was sharp, vivid, almost painful in its contrast to her current task of categorizing expense reports. She quickly suppressed it, focusing on the spreadsheet in front of her. Beside her laptop, almost hidden by a stack of mundane utility bills, sat a framed, slightly discolored diploma from the prestigious Wharton School of Business. The gold seal had faded, and the bold letters proclaiming her a Master of Business Administration seemed almost ironic in her current context. The next morning, a Tuesday, promised the same methodical routine. She woke at 5:30 a.m., exercised for an hour, brewed a single cup of black coffee, and began her commute on the perpetually crowded train. It was during this commute, a blur of faces and hushed conversations, that a subtle deviation occurred. As the train pulled into the city, a young woman boarded, pushing a bulky overloaded stroller, a fussing toddler clinging to her leg, and a baby no more than a few months old wailing in her arms. The woman looked utterly exhausted. Her eyes red-rimmed, her clothes slightly rumpled. She fumbled with her purse, trying to retrieve her transit card. The baby's cries escalating into a piercing shriek. Passengers glanced, some with annoyance, others with pity, but no one offered to help. Amelia watched from her seat, a quiet observer. She noticed the woman's trembling hands, the desperate glance she cast around the crowded car. The toddler tugged harder, demanding attention, and a small frayed doll fell from the stroller unnoticed. The woman let out a small, defeated sigh, tears welling in her eyes. It was a moment of profound vulnerability exposed for all to see. Without a moment's hesitation, Amelia rose. Her movements were fluid, almost imperceptible, amidst the jostling of the train. She walked to the young mother bent down and quietly picked up the doll, handing it to the toddler with a gentle smile. Then, with a quick practiced motion, she slipped her own transit card into the slot of the fare machine. The green light flashed. "Go ahead," Amelia murmured, her voice soft but firm. "It's on me." The young mother looked up, her eyes wide with surprise, then flooded with gratitude. "Oh, thank you so much," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Before the woman could protest or offer payment, Amelia simply nodded, a small, reassuring smile on her face, and moved past her, finding another standing spot further down the aisle. She didn't seek acknowledgement or thanks. For Amelia, it was a quiet act, a small flicker of the inherent kindness that lay beneath her composed exterior. It was a moment where the quiet dignity of her character shone through a subtle rebellion against the indifference of the urban sprawl. The mother, still a little stunned, finally managed to guide her stroller through the turnstile, her baby's cries having mercifully subsided. She looked back, searching for Amelia, but the crowd had already swallowed her. Later that day, back in the muted beige of her cubicle, the rhythmic click of her keyboard echoed in the sterile air. Amelia was immersed in a complex financial model, trying to find efficiencies in a budget that seemed designed to resist them. Her mind, usually a precision instrument, felt vaguely restless, a faint echo of the morning's encounter lingering. She prided herself on her detachment, on her ability to navigate the corporate landscape without emotional entanglement. Yet the image of the young mother's tear-filled eyes, the silent gratitude, had somehow lodged itself in her consciousness. It was a fleeting thought, easily dismissed, but it was there, a subtle reminder that her world, though meticulously ordered, sometimes lacked the raw, messy warmth of human connection. Suddenly, an email notification popped up on her screen, pulling her sharply from her calculations. The sender was unfamiliar: Davies and Associates Legal Services. Her brow furrowed. She rarely received personal emails at work, and certainly not from law firms. A cold dread, a premonition of bad news, settled in her stomach. She clicked it open, her fingers hovering over the mouse. The subject line was stark: regarding the estate of Eleanor Vance. Eleanor Vance. The name conjured a vague image, a distant relative, a great-aunt perhaps, whom Amelia had met only a handful of times at dreary family gatherings in her childhood. A woman known for her eccentricities and her fierce independence, a black sheep of sorts in a family obsessed with tradition and appearance. Amelia hadn't thought of her in decades. The email was formal, concise, and utterly bewildering. It stated with legal precision that due to the recent passing of Ms. Eleanor Vance, Amelia had been named a primary beneficiary in her will. The inheritance was substantial, a controlling stake in a regional chain of gas stations known as Roadside Respite, along with a significant portfolio of associated properties. Amelia stared at the words, her mind struggling to reconcile Eleanor Vance with gas stations. Her family had always been doctors, lawyers, academics, respectable, clean professions. Gas stations. It felt unseemly. A flicker of the old dismissive family whispers about Eleanor's unconventional business ventures came back to her. The email further stated that a mandatory meeting was required at Davies and Associates offices within 2 weeks to discuss the terms of the inheritance. Amelia reread the paragraph about Roadside Respite, struggling regional chain. The words hung in the air, cold and definitive. Her first instinct was a sharp, unbidden laugh, a dry, mirthless sound. A gas station chain. What could she, a corporate analyst who dealt in abstract figures and quarterly reports, possibly do with a chain of grimy, struggling gas stations? It felt like a cosmic joke, a burden disguised as a blessing. A more chilling thought then crept in. The whispers around Sterling and Finch had grown louder recently, the murmurs of impending restructuring and downsizing. Just yesterday, she'd overheard her supervisor on a hushed phone call mentioning optimizing personnel. The corporate world, for all its veneer of stability, was a treacherous landscape. The inheritance, initially a preposterous inconvenience, suddenly shifted in her mind. It was a lifeline, albeit a peculiar one. Her initial fear and reluctance battled with a nascent, almost forgotten spark of something else. It was the thrill of a challenge, the faint echo of Dr. Albright's words, "You're going to change the world." The corporate job had stifled that part of her, burying it under layers of routine and resignation. But the prospect of a gas station chain, no matter how disreputable it seemed, was undeniably real. It was tangible, a far cry from the abstract numbers she pushed around on a screen. As the afternoon light faded, casting long shadows across her cubicle, Amelia continued to process the news. The legal email included a single non-negotiable clause, highlighted in bold. The beneficiary must actively manage the inherited business for a minimum period of six months, from the date of formal acceptance, or the inheritance, including all associated assets, shall revert to the remaining beneficiaries. This wasn't just an inheritance, it was a mandate. She couldn't simply cash out, couldn't delegate. She had to do it. The words resonated with a strange, almost forceful clarity. This was the point of no return. Her meticulously constructed safe beige life was officially over. The quiet hum of her refrigerator at home, the monotonous rhythm of her commute, the predictable clicks of her keyboard, all of it suddenly felt distant, already a part of a past rapidly receding. A new, uncertain, and undeniably louder hum was beginning to resonate, pulling her towards an unknown future. The legend, it seemed, was being called back to the arena. She closed her laptop, the screen reflecting her face no longer placid, but etched with a nascent blend of apprehension and a fierce, undeniable determination. The news of Eleanor Vance's will felt less like an inheritance and more like an eviction notice from Amelia's carefully constructed life of quiet order. The email, stark and unyielding, had been the first domino. The days that followed were a blur of bewildered phone calls from family members, some expressing condolences laced with thinly veiled curiosity about Eleanor's final eccentric act. Others offering unsolicited advice or thinly disguised warnings about the difficulties of the gas station business. Amelia fielded them with her characteristic composure, offering polite, non-committal answers, her mind already racing. Her last day at Sterling and Finch was surprisingly anticlimactic. The impending layoffs had indeed materialized, and Amelia, though intellectually prepared, felt a strange mix of relief and a faint tremor of fear. Her cubicle, once a symbol of her chosen predictable path, now seemed like a tiny beige cage. As she packed her meager personal belongings, a framed photo of her college friends, a small succulent, a few well-worn pens, a surprising number of colleagues paused to offer their well wishes. Some expressed genuine regret at her departure, their faces reflecting the uncertainty of their own futures. Amelia offered them her usual serene smile, a silent acknowledgement of shared vulnerability. She was leaving one known unknown for a far grander, more terrifying one. The meeting at Davies & Associates was held in a somber, wood-paneled office in a skyscraper overlooking the bustling city. Mr. Davies, a tall, gaunt man with a precise demeanor and rimless glasses, greeted her with an almost theatrical solemnity. He laid out the terms of the will with dispassionate clarity. Roadside Respite, he explained, was a chain of 6 gas stations scattered across the tri-state area. Once a modest but steady enterprise, it had been floundering for the past few years, plagued by declining sales employee turnover and a growing reputation for shoddy service and outdated facilities. Eleanor, a shrewd businesswoman, despite her unconventional methods, had left strict instructions. She believed that the business needed new blood, untainted by the old ways, and had specifically chosen Amelia, a grandniece she had observed from afar, for her untapped potential. The 6-month active management clause was not a suggestion. It was a non-negotiable test. Ms. Vance. Mr. Davies concluded, pushing a thick binder of documents across the polished mahogany table. Your great-aunt was a woman of foresight. She saw something in you, something beyond the usual corporate ladder. She explicitly stated in her addendum that she believed you possessed the grit of a diamond in the rough and the vision to see beyond the grime. A rather poetic turn of phrase for a will, wouldn't you agree? He permitted himself a thin, almost imperceptible smile. Amelia felt a strange stirring within her. Grit of a diamond in the rough. Vision to see beyond the grime. These were not the words her own family had ever used to describe her. They had praised her intelligence, her diligence, but always within the confines of established norms. Eleanor, a woman she barely knew, seemed to have seen something deeper, something she herself had long suppressed. It felt like a gauntlet thrown down, a challenge to reclaim a part of herself she had abandoned. The binder was a dense compendium of financial statements, legal documents, and operational reports. As Amelia skimmed through the pages, she felt a familiar spark of intellectual curiosity. The numbers, though grim, began to tell a story. Inefficiencies, poor inventory management, high overheads, and a glaring lack of customer service initiatives. Her mind, honed by years of analyzing corporate data, instinctively began to identify patterns, potential areas for intervention. The dread was still there, but it was now interwoven with a growing sense of analytical purpose. This wasn't just a burden, it was a puzzle, a complex problem begging to be solved. And Amelia, despite herself, loved a good puzzle. Her initial step, much to Mr. Davies's mild surprise, was not to immediately contact the existing management, but to conduct an incognito reconnaissance. She needed to see the problem firsthand, unfiltered by corporate reports or biased employee perspectives. She chose the largest and seemingly most central of the 6 stations located on the outskirts of a moderately sized town called Oakhaven, a 2-hour drive from her apartment. This particular station, according to the reports, had the lowest customer satisfaction ratings and the highest operational costs. It felt like a good place to start. On a cool, overcast Wednesday morning, Amelia drove her unassuming sedan towards Oakhaven. She was dressed simply: dark jeans, a plain charcoal sweater, and comfortable sneakers. Her hair was pulled back into a simple ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup. She wanted to blend in, to be just another customer. As she approached the station, Roadside Respite No. 3, she noted the peeling paint on the sign, the faded, grimy pumps, and the general air of neglect. Potholes pockmarked the entrance, and a lone, overflowing trash can sat near the convenience store entrance, attracting a buzzing cloud of flies. It looked exactly like the struggling enterprise the reports had described. She pulled her car up to one of the pumps, her heart a little faster than usual. She wasn't just a customer. She was an owner, a silent, unacknowledged queen observing her desolate kingdom. The pumps themselves looked ancient, some missing nozzle covers, others spattered with dried fuel stains. She selected a pump, inserted her card, and waited. And waited. Nothing happened. The screen remained blank. After a full minute, she tried another pump. Same result. Frustration began to prickle at her. This was basic functionality, yet it was clearly failing. She glanced towards the convenience store. Through the smudged windows, she could see a man behind the counter, leaning back in his chair, engrossed in something on his phone. His name, she knew from the organizational chart in the binder, was Mr. Harrison, the regional manager responsible for the Oakhaven station. He was, according to internal memos, a long-serving employee praised for his loyalty, a euphemism Amelia suspected for resistance to change. Amelia walked into the store. The air inside was stale, smelling faintly of stale coffee and burnt hot dogs. Shelves were half empty, and dust motes danced in the weak fluorescent light. The counter was sticky. Mr. Harrison, a man with a perpetually disgruntled expression and a receding hairline, did not look up from his phone. His uniform, a pale blue polo shirt with the Roadside Respite logo, looked stretched and slightly grubby. "Excuse me," Amelia said, her voice clear and calm. "The pumps aren't working." Harrison finally looked up, his eyes narrowing slightly as he took her in. His gaze lingered on her dark skin, then her simple clothing, a dismissive sneer playing on his lips. "Having trouble, ma'am," he drawled, his tone dripping with condescension. "Sometimes you gotta wiggle the nozzle. It's not rocket science." He still didn't move from behind the counter. Amelia's spine stiffened. She felt the familiar prickle of irritation, then a deeper, more profound anger. This wasn't just poor customer service. It was deliberate rudeness tinged with an unmistakable air of prejudice. She had encountered it before: subtle slights, dismissive attitudes, the unspoken assumption that she, a black woman, didn't quite fit into certain spaces or roles. But this time it was happening in a place she now technically owned. "I've tried 2 different pumps," Amelia stated, keeping her voice level, a conscious effort to maintain her composure. "They're both unresponsive." Harrison finally pushed himself off his chair, ambling slowly towards the door. "Look, lady, if you can't figure out a gas pump, maybe you should take the bus," he muttered, loud enough for a young man stocking shelves nearby to hear. The young man. Marcus glanced up, his eyes wide with apprehension, then quickly looked away, seemingly absorbed in arranging a display of sugary drinks. Marcus was new, barely out of high school, and had been working at Roadside Respite for only a month. He'd seen Harrison treat plenty of customers poorly, but never with such outright disdain, especially to a black customer. He knew it was wrong, but he desperately needed the job. Harrison stepped outside, his hands shoved into his pockets. He fiddled with a pump, gave it a perfunctory shake, and then returned a smug expression on his face. "Seems fine to me. You just gotta know how to use 'em." He walked back behind the counter, pulling out his phone again. "Next customer." He called out, his eyes sweeping past Amelia to a white man who had just pulled up in a gleaming pickup truck. Harrison immediately offered a warm, ingratiating smile. "What can I get for you, sir, regular or premium?" Amelia watched, her blood running cold, then boiling. The blatant double standard, the casual disrespect, the assumption that she was either too incompetent or too insignificant to merit proper service. It ignited something fierce within her. It was no longer just about the broken pumps. It was about dignity, about respect, about systemic disregard for both customers and basic business principles. This man was not only incompetent, but he was actively driving customers away, all while operating under her name. A quiet, dangerous resolve settled over Amelia. The tremor in her hand, which had been almost imperceptible earlier, now vanished. Her years of suppressing ambition, of choosing the safe path, melted away under the heat of this direct affront. This wasn't just a gas station. It was a microcosm of the very prejudices she had silently navigated her entire life. And now she had the power to confront it. She walked purposefully towards the counter, her steps light but firm. Harrison, still chatting affably with the man in the pickup truck, didn't notice her approach until she was directly in front of him. His smile faltered as he finally registered the change in her demeanor. Her eyes, usually warm and placid, now held a cool, unwavering intensity that made him instinctively take a half-step back. "Mr. Harrison," Amelia said, her voice dropping to a low, resonant tone that commanded attention, a voice rarely used in her corporate analyst role, but one that spoke of undeniable authority. "I believe you've made a grave error in judgment." Harrison blinked, momentarily flustered. "Excuse me, ma'am. I was just helping a paying customer." Amelia ignored him, her gaze sweeping around the dusty, neglected store, taking in the overflowing trash, the sparse shelves, the broken pumps she had just witnessed. Marcus, who had stopped stocking, watched them, his eyes darting between Amelia and Harrison, a mixture of fear and growing fascination on his face. He'd never seen anyone speak to Harrison like this. "This establishment," Amelia continued, her voice gaining strength, each word deliberate and precise, "is a disgrace. The pumps are not functional. The cleanliness is appalling. And your customer service, Mr. Harrison, is frankly an embarrassment." She paused, letting her words hang in the stale air. Then she fixed him with a stare that brooked no argument, a gaze that seemed to peel back layers, exposing his petty prejudices and gross incompetence. "I am Amelia Vance." Harrison's smug expression slowly disintegrated. He frowned, trying to place the name. Amelia Vance. Why did it sound familiar? His mind raced, scrambling for an explanation for this woman's sudden shift in demeanor, her unexpected authority. As in Amelia Vance, the new CEO of Roadside Respite. She clarified, her voice like ice. She didn't shout, didn't raise her voice above a calm, authoritative pitch. It was the quiet certainty of her words that carried the true weight. "I just finalized the acquisition this morning, and I spent the past 10 minutes observing your performance." Harrison's face went from pale to ashen. His jaw dropped. The words, "new CEO," echoed in his mind, shattering his complacent world. His eyes darted to Marcus, then to the man in the pickup, who was now staring with open curiosity. The realization dawned on him slowly, painfully. He had just denied service, insulted, and dismissed the new owner of the entire chain. "No, no, ma'am, that's impossible." He stammered, his usual bluster dissolving into a pathetic plea. "There must be some mistake. I've been here for 20 years, loyal employee." "There is no mistake, Mr. Harrison," Amelia stated, her voice unwavering. "Your loyalty, it seems, has been to your own prejudice and apathy, not to this company or its customers." She took a deep breath, the air around her suddenly charged with a fierce, quiet power. "7 minutes ago you denied me service in my own gas station. Effective immediately, Mr. Harrison, you are fired." The words hung in the air, echoing in the stunned silence of the convenience store. Marcus visibly flinched, then his eyes widened in a mixture of shock and dawning relief. The man in the pickup truck stared, his mouth slightly agape. Harrison stood frozen, a deer caught in headlights, his face a mask of disbelief and dawning terror. The arrogance, the condescension, the years of casual prejudice, all of it had come crashing down in a single decisive moment. The quiet analyst had vanished, replaced by the formidable CEO. The legend was indeed back. The silence that followed Amelia's pronouncement was thick, almost suffocating, broken only by the distant hum of traffic from the highway. Mr. Harrison, his face a grotesque mask of disbelief and rage, finally found his voice a strangled, guttural sound. You can't do this," he spluttered, his eyes wide with a desperate animal fear. "I'm the regional manager. I've been here for 20 years. This is my station." Amelia met his gaze, unflinching. "It was never your station, Mr. Harrison. It was a business you were entrusted with, and one you clearly failed to manage effectively. Your 20 years of loyalty appear to have been 20 years of neglect, incompetence, and frankly outright discrimination. The pumps are broken. The store is filthy. And your attitude towards customers is reprehensible." Her voice remained calm, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Harrison's eyes. She gestured to the young man Marcus, who stood frozen by the soda display. "Marcus, please retrieve Mr. Harrison's personal belongings and escort him off the premises. He is no longer employed by Roadside Respite." Marcus, though still visibly shaken, snapped to attention. He had seen enough of Harrison's tyranny to feel a surge of vindication. "Yes, ma'am," he said, his voice a little shaky but firm. He moved with a newfound purpose, heading towards the small back office where Harrison kept his things. Harrison's face contorted. "You little—" he snarled, taking a step towards Marcus, but Amelia subtly shifted her weight, a silent, powerful presence that made him hesitate. He knew instinctively that this woman was not to be trifled with. His anger, though simmering, was quickly being eclipsed by the crushing weight of reality. He, Mr. Harrison, the undisputed king of his little gas station kingdom, was being dethroned publicly by a woman he had just dismissed as inconsequential. The humiliation burned hotter than any fury. "This isn't over, lady." Harrison spat, his voice trembling with impotent rage. "You don't know who you're dealing with. You won't last a month. This whole chain is falling apart, and you just sealed its fate." He stormed past Amelia, almost knocking over a display of motor oil, and vanished into the back office, muttering threats under his breath. Amelia watched him go, a faint, almost imperceptible sigh escaping her lips. The adrenaline which had coursed through her veins moments ago began to recede, leaving behind a profound sense of exhaustion, mixed with a strange, exhilarating lightness. This was it. The point of no return she had read about in the inheritance papers. She had not only accepted the challenge, she had aggressively, publicly confronted its most immediate and ugly manifestation. The man in the pickup truck, who had been a silent, wide-eyed observer, slowly approached the counter. He was a burly man, perhaps in his late 40s, with a weathered face and kind eyes. "Ma'am," he began, his voice surprisingly gentle, "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Harrison's always been a piece of work. It's about time someone put him in his place." He offered a small, appreciative nod. "You said you're the new CEO, name's Frank. I've been coming to this station for 20 years. Used to be a decent place. Glad to see someone finally stepping up." Amelia offered him a genuine, though small, smile. "Thank you, Frank. I appreciate that. I'm Amelia Vance, and I promise you this station and all Roadside Respite locations will be different from now on." Frank returned her smile, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "I believe you, ma'am. You've got fire. Good luck." He bought a bottle of water and left a new customer, or rather a re-engaged old one. His subtle shift from casual observer to vocal supporter was the first small victory. Moments later, Marcus emerged from the back office carrying a small, worn cardboard box. His face was pale, but there was a flicker of something new in his eyes. Relief certainly, but also a dawning respect. Harrison, fuming, brushed past him, grabbed the box, and stormed out of the store, slamming the door behind him with a force that rattled the glass. The air in the store suddenly felt lighter, cleaner. Marcus approached Amelia cautiously. "He's gone, Ms. Vance," he said, his voice softer, almost reverent. I can't believe it. No one's ever stood up to him like that." Amelia turned to Marcus, her gaze softening. She noticed his nervous energy, his youth, the way he clutched a dusty rag in his hands. He was clearly intimidated, but also genuinely impressed. This was her Ngoy Tro Gyup, the one who saw her light. "Thank you, Marcus," she said. "Now tell me about those pumps, and everything else." Marcus, still a little stunned, stammered at first, then slowly, hesitantly began to explain. "Well, Ms. Vance, Pump 3 and Pump 5, they've been out for weeks. Mr. Harrison, he just said to put out-of-order signs on them and not worry about it. Said it was too expensive to fix. And the restrooms, they're not great. And the coffee machine, it's always breaking. We keep running out of sodas because Mr. Harrison doesn't order enough." As he spoke, his initial fear began to dissipate, replaced by a surge of frustration that he'd clearly been holding back. He detailed the systemic issues, the shortcuts, the deliberate neglect. He spoke of Harrison's favoritism, his casual racism towards certain customers, and his general disdain for proper maintenance. Marcus, it became clear, had been witnessing this slow decline, with a growing sense of helplessness. Amelia listened intently, nodding occasionally, absorbing every detail. This raw, unfiltered information was invaluable. It confirmed her suspicions and validated her decision. This wasn't just a struggling business. It was a business suffering from malicious neglect and prejudice management. Her internal conflict, the lingering doubt about whether she was truly capable of this, began to dissolve. The intellectual challenge was merging with a moral imperative. "Marcus," Amelia said, cutting him off gently, "you did well. You saw what was happening. Now tell me, do you want to help me fix it?" Marcus's eyes widened. "Me, Ms. Vance, I just stock shelves." "You also just helped me understand the true state of affairs here." Amelia countered, her gaze direct. "You have observational skills and, more importantly, integrity. I need people like you. This is a clean slate. I need a new manager, someone I can trust, someone who actually cares about this place and its customers. Are you willing to learn to work hard, to put in the hours no matter how tough it gets?" Marcus hesitated for only a moment, then a firm resolve hardened his jaw. He saw not just a job offer, but an opportunity, a chance to be part of something meaningful, to escape the stagnation he'd already felt pressing in on him. "Yes, Ms. Vance," he said, his voice clear and strong. "Yes, I am. I'll do whatever it takes." "Good," Amelia said, a genuine smile gracing her lips, a smile that reached her eyes, reflecting a warmth that few at Sterling and Finch had ever seen. "Your first task, take photos of everything that's broken, everything that's dirty, every problem you've identified. Be thorough. We're going to compile a complete list, and then we're going to start fixing them one by one. I want a deep clean of this entire station. Every nook and cranny. Starting now." Marcus nodded enthusiastically, already grabbing his phone to begin documenting the issues. He felt a surge of energy he hadn't known he possessed. He wasn't just an attendant anymore. He was part of a mission. Amelia then spent the rest of the afternoon at Roadside Respite No. 3, not just observing, but actively engaging. She walked the perimeter, identifying structural damage, noting the overgrown landscaping, the faded signage. She checked the air pump, which was also broken. She went into the women's restroom, grimacing at the grimy fixtures and the overflowing waste bin. She returned to the counter, pulling out her laptop. "All right, Marcus," she said as he returned with a series of photos. "Let's look at the inventory system. I suspect a lot of our financial bleed is right here." As Marcus navigated the clunky, outdated POS system, Amelia's sharp mind immediately identified inconsistencies, discrepancies between reported sales and actual stock, irregularities in vendor invoices. It was clear that Harrison hadn't just been neglectful. He had likely been skimming from the top, manipulating the numbers to line his own pockets. The depth of his deceit fueled Amelia's determination. This wasn't just about turning a profit. It was about reclaiming what had been stolen, restoring integrity. While Amelia and Marcus worked, the news of Harrison's abrupt firing, delivered by the new no-nonsense CEO, began to ripple through the small town. Rumors, as always, traveled faster than facts. Some dismissed it as a rash, emotional decision by a newbie owner. Others, particularly those who had suffered Harrison's condescension, secretly cheered. Meanwhile, Harrison himself was in a state of barely controlled fury. He drove away from roadside respite number 3, his mind a whirlwind of disbelief, resentment, and a chilling need for retribution. That woman, he seethed, slamming his fist on the steering wheel. She thinks she can just waltz in and throw me out after all I've done. His loyalty in his twisted view was indeed absolute loyalty to himself. He had seen roadside respite as his personal fiefdom, a place where he could exert petty power, discriminate freely, and skim profits without oversight. The idea of a black woman, especially one he had so casually demeaned, taking it all away, was an unbearable affront to his ego. He immediately called his confidant, a man named Sterling, owner of a rival chain, Sterling's Stop and Go. Mr. Sterling, a smooth, calculating businessman with a reputation for aggressive tactics, was also a longtime acquaintance of Harrison's, having occasionally swapped favors and information over the years. He also harbored a quiet ambition to expand his own empire by acquiring struggling businesses. "Sterling, you won't believe what happened." Harrison fumed, barely containing his rage. "That new CEO, that black woman Amelia Vance, she just fired me. Right there in front of everyone, accused me of everything under the sun." He embellished the story, painting himself as the innocent victim of an irrational, power-hungry newcomer. He omitted, of course, the part where he had denied her service. Mr. Sterling listened patiently, a sly smile forming on his lips. He knew Harrison was a loose cannon prone to exaggeration, but he also knew Harrison's general character. He mentally filed away the black woman detail, knowing how to leverage such information in the circles he moved in. A struggling gas station chain with a new, seemingly unstable owner and a disgruntled, well-connected former manager. This smelled like an opportunity. Sterling had long eyed roadside respite, seeing its potential, if only its current complacent owner, Eleanor Vance, whom he had dismissed as a doddering old eccentric, would finally sell. Now a new, inexperienced owner was at the helm, and she had just alienated a key regional figure. "Fired, you say, Harrison?" Sterling purred, his voice deceptively calm. "Well, that's certainly unfortunate, but perhaps an opportunity for us. Tell me more about this Amelia Vance. What exactly did she say, and how exactly did she finalize the acquisition so quickly?" Sterling's mind began to churn, already formulating strategies not of assistance, but of exploitation. He saw Amelia Vance not as a competitor to be respected, but as a naive pawn whose impulsive actions had just handed him a golden opportunity to expand his own empire. He had no particular prejudice against Amelia, but he certainly didn't respect a woman, especially a black woman, taking over a business he considered to be beneath her. He saw her as an easy target. Harrison, desperate for an ally and consumed by revenge, poured out every detail, every half-truth, every exaggerated slight. He told Sterling about the gas pumps, framing it as an impossible demand from a boss who didn't understand the realities of the business. He painted Amelia as arrogant, dismissive, and utterly incompetent. He even hinted at some secret information he had about roadside respite's true financial woes, information that he believed could completely cripple the chain. Sterling listened, absorbing it all, his smile widening imperceptibly. He recognized Harrison's vindictiveness, but he also recognized the potential for a coordinated attack. This wasn't just about helping Harrison. It was about acquiring roadside respite at a rock-bottom price, turning Amelia Vance's inheritance into his personal gain. The initial confrontation had indeed unveiled the true adversary, not just a prejudiced manager, but a calculating opportunist who saw her very existence as a threat and a vulnerability to be exploited. The stage was set for a much larger battle. The days following Harrison's dramatic exit were a whirlwind for Amelia. She hadn't just fired a manager. She had, in essence, plunged headfirst into the chaotic, demanding world of hands-on business ownership. Her apartment, once a sanctuary of quiet evenings, became a strategic command center, its meticulously organized surfaces now littered with roadside respite documents, supplier catalogs, and a growing stack of operational manuals. The hum of the refrigerator was replaced by the constant low thrum of her laptop and the incessant ping of incoming emails. Her initial focus was on the Oakhaven station. Marcus, proving to be an invaluable asset, embraced his new role with an infectious enthusiasm that surprised even Amelia. He was a sponge eager to learn every aspect of the business from inventory management to customer engagement. Under Amelia's meticulous guidance, they tackled the most glaring issues first. The broken pumps were repaired, the grimy restrooms scrubbed until they gleamed, the shelves restocked with popular items, and the overflowing trash cans replaced. Amelia even spent hours personally cleaning and organizing, demonstrating a commitment that inspired Marcus and subtly shifted the atmosphere of the station. She insisted on fresh coffee brewed hourly and a genuinely friendly greeting for every customer. Word of the changes and of Amelia herself spread quickly through Oakhaven. Regulars like Frank noticed the difference immediately. The station, once a place of last resort, began to attract more customers. Sales slowly ticked upwards. Amelia, with Marcus as her eager lieutenant, began to implement the strategy she'd envisioned for years. Optimizing fuel delivery schedules, negotiating better deals with suppliers, and even conceptualizing a small welcoming seating area within the convenience store, a true respite for weary travelers. But Amelia knew that the battle for roadside respite was far from over. Her omniscient perspective, granted by the detailed reports Eleanor Vance had kept coupled with her own keen analytical mind, revealed a deeper rot within the chain. And then there was Harrison. She knew his type, a petty tyrant fueled by resentment, unlikely to fade quietly into the night. What she didn't know was just how quickly he would move, or with whom he would conspire. Meanwhile, Mr. Sterling, the cunning owner of Sterling's Stop and Go, was already putting his plan into motion. He saw Amelia's decisive action not as a display of strength, but as an impulsive emotional move by an inexperienced owner. He viewed her as a transient figure, a temporary hurdle to his long-held ambition of acquiring roadside respite. His prejudice was subtle, insidious. He wouldn't openly disparage her race, but in his mind, a black woman, especially one who had just inherited a business, simply didn't possess the cutthroat nature or the generational understanding of the industry to succeed. He genuinely believed she would fail, and he intended to accelerate that failure. Sterling convened a meeting with his most trusted and equally unscrupulous lieutenants. "Harrison tells me our new competitor is a bit green." He began, a wolfish smile playing on his lips. "Fired him on the spot. Seems a bit rash for a CEO, wouldn't you say?" He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. Roadside respite has always been ripe for acquisition. Now, with this new unconventional leadership, it's weaker than ever. And Harrison, for all his flaws, knows where the bodies are buried. His plan was multifaceted, designed to apply pressure from all sides. First, a smear campaign. Through anonymous tips to local media outlets and whispers circulated among industry contacts, false rumors began to spread. Roadside Respite was on the brink of bankruptcy. Its new CEO was making reckless decisions, and even darker, unsubstantiated claims about her past business ventures began to surface subtly, twisting her suppressed ambitions into tales of past failures. These rumors were designed to erode public trust and sow discord among the remaining Roadside Respite employees. Second, economic sabotage. Sterling, leveraging his extensive network, subtly influenced fuel distributors and maintenance contractors to prioritize his chain over roadside respite, causing delayed deliveries, higher prices, and slower response times for critical repairs. He knew Amelia, as a new player, wouldn't immediately recognize the systemic nature of these coincidences. Third, and most devastatingly, a strategic employee raid. Harrison, fueled by Sterling's promises of a new well-paid position and a thirst for vengeance, began contacting Roadside Respite's most experienced, albeit disillusioned, long-term employees. He painted a grim picture of Amelia's leadership, exaggerating her perceived inexperience and emphasizing the chain's imminent collapse. He offered them immediate lucrative positions at Sterling's Stop and Go. This was a direct attack on Roadside Respite's operational backbone, designed to leave Amelia with a skeleton crew of unseasoned staff. Amelia felt the first tremors of the organized assault within weeks. Fuel deliveries became erratic, forcing her to pay premium prices for urgent top-ups. A critical pump at another location, number 5, broke down, and the repair company, which had served roadside respite for years, suddenly claimed a full schedule, pushing their service date back by weeks. Employee morale, which had begun to lift, started to dip again as whispers of instability spread. Two experienced managers from other stations tendered their resignations, citing better opportunities, their faces unusually evasive. The pressure mounted daily. Amelia found herself working 18-hour days, moving between stations, troubleshooting, trying to stem the bleeding. The calm she had cultivated for years began to fray at the edges. She felt the isolation keenly. Marcus, though dedicated, was still learning. Her past corporate colleagues were sympathetic but offered no practical help. The legal firm Davies & Associates provided advice on contracts but little in the way of operational strategy. She was truly alone in this fight, a single figure against an unseen yet clearly coordinated enemy. The whispers in the media were the hardest to combat. An anonymous column in a local business journal questioned the wisdom of a sudden leadership change at roadside respite, hinting darkly at financial mismanagement. The article, while not explicitly naming Amelia, implicitly questioned her qualifications and her background, subtly tapping into underlying biases. Amelia recognized the insidious nature of the attack. It wasn't just about business, it was about character assassination. One particularly grueling evening, after a chaotic day dealing with a fuel shortage at station number 2 and a walkout of 2 attendants at station number 6, Amelia found herself back at Oakhaven, the original battleground. The usually bustling station was eerily quiet, only a few cars at the pumps. Marcus, his young face etched with worry, was trying to manage the counter alone. "Ms. Vance." Marcus began, his voice barely a whisper. "Mrs. Davies from the coffee shop next door. She asked me if it was true that we're going out of business. She said she heard it on the local news." His eyes pleaded for reassurance. Amelia felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. The rumors had reached the community. "It's not true, Marcus," she said, her voice firm despite the weariness in her bones. "It's a coordinated attack. Someone wants us to fail." She spent hours that night poring over the financial reports, cross-referencing supplier invoices and analyzing market data. Her analytical mind, though strained, began to see the patterns. The sudden price hikes from her long-standing fuel supplier, the inexplicable delays from the repair company, the perfectly timed resignations. It was too coordinated to be coincidence. Then she saw it, a tiny, almost invisible link. One of the newly resigned managers had processed a suspiciously large order from a vendor 2 days before his resignation, a vendor who also happened to supply Sterling's Stop and Go. It was a subtle, almost untraceable act of sabotage, likely encouraged by Harrison. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Sterling and Harrison. It was a powerful, ruthless combination. Harrison's petty vengeance amplified by Sterling's calculating ambition. The true nature of her adversary was revealed, not just a prejudiced manager, but a sophisticated, well-resourced rival who saw her very existence as a threat to his expansionist dreams. The ultimate test, Amelia realized, was not just fixing the broken stations but surviving a concerted, malicious campaign designed to bankrupt her. She was in a high-stakes game of corporate warfare, and she was severely outmatched in terms of resources and industry connections. The news then broke: the annual Oakhaven Business Summit was fast approaching. It was a prestigious event, a showcase for local businesses and a platform for community leaders. This year, due to the recent economic downturn, the summit would feature a small business turnaround challenge. 3 struggling local businesses would present their recovery plans to a panel of esteemed judges, including prominent investors and local media. The winner would receive a substantial grant, and more importantly, a public endorsement that could legitimize their turnaround efforts. Sterling, with his typical cunning, had secured a spot for Sterling's Stop and Go to be one of the success stories presented at the summit, highlighting his chain's resilience during challenging times. He knew Roadside Respite would likely be invited to participate in the turnaround challenge due to its notorious struggles. This was his arena. A formal invitation arrived for Roadside Respite to participate in the Small Business Turnaround Challenge. Amelia stared at the elegant embossed card, a cynical smile touching her lips. Sterling was trying to draw her out, to make her fight on his turf in front of an audience he had undoubtedly influenced. This wasn't just a business competition. It was a public execution designed to expose her perceived incompetence and publicly validate his takeover. The pressure intensified exponentially. The summit was in 2 weeks. 2 weeks to turn around years of neglect and counteract a sophisticated sabotage campaign. 2 weeks to prepare a presentation that would not only showcase her vision, but also subtly expose her adversaries without appearing vindictive or unprofessional. Amelia felt the full weight of her isolation. She had no corporate team, no PR firm, no seasoned mentors to guide her. It was just her Marcus and the raw data she had painstakingly collected. Every night she barely slept, fueled by black coffee and a fierce determination. She remembered the early days of her corporate career, the hunger she had felt to prove herself, to climb the ladder. This was different. This wasn't about climbing. It was about survival. It was about reclaiming not just a business, but her own sense of purpose and worth, validated not by external approval, but by her own resilience. She spent hours in the quiet of her apartment, surrounded by spreadsheets and projections. She analyzed every single detail of Roadside Respite's operations, cross-referencing them with the whispers of sabotage. She identified the specific weak points Harrison and Sterling had exploited. She understood the supply chain bottlenecks, the inflated repair costs, the carefully orchestrated rumors. She realized that her greatest strength wasn't her past corporate experience, but her ability to see the interconnectedness of things, to find the hidden patterns, to discern the truth beneath the layers of deception. Marcus, meanwhile, worked tirelessly. He was her eyes and ears on the ground, relaying information from other stations, checking on supplies, and keeping her updated on the local gossip. He even started using his phone to secretly record suspicious conversations and interactions at the stations on his own initiative, driven by a fierce loyalty to Amelia and a desire to see justice served. He was learning, growing, transforming from a nervous kid into a budding strategist. He had witnessed firsthand how Harrison had treated her, how he had treated him and other marginalized customers, and he felt a deep personal connection to Amelia's fight. He was her unwavering anchor in the stormy sea of corporate intrigue. Amelia knew that simply presenting a business plan wouldn't be enough. She needed to expose the truth, to turn the tables on Harrison and Sterling, in a way that left no room for doubt or rebuttal. She began to formulate a strategy that was as meticulous as it was audacious. She would not just present her vision. She would dismantle their carefully constructed lies, piece by painful piece. The thought filled her with a grim satisfaction. The time for quiet observation was over. The time for the legendary fight had arrived. The image of her young, vibrant self from the faded photograph floated through her mind. That girl, the one with wild dreams, would have relished this challenge. And now the woman she had become, forged by years of quiet resilience, was finally ready to face it. The gas station, once a symbol of her burden, had become her arena. And she would fight, not just for herself, but for every hidden talent, every suppressed ambition, every dignity denied. The Oakhaven Business Summit loomed like an approaching storm, its shadow extending over Amelia Vance and the beleaguered Roadside Respite chain. The grand ballroom of the Oakhaven Convention Center, where the Small Business Turnaround Challenge was to be held, was transformed into a symbolic arena. The stage, adorned with banners of local businesses and a large digital screen for presentations, felt less like a platform for commerce and more like a gladiatorial pit, with Amelia cast as the underdog. The very air thrummed with anticipation, amplified by the presence of local news crews, their cameras poised to capture every success, and more eagerly every failure. Amelia arrived early on the day of the summit, her attire a deliberate statement, a crisp, impeccably tailored dark suit that exuded authority without being ostentatious. Her hair was sleekly pulled back, accentuating the sharp intelligence in her eyes. Marcus, looking nervous but determined in his freshly pressed uniform, accompanied her, carrying a sleek presentation tablet. He was her only confidant, her unwavering rock in this tumultuous sea. As they entered, Amelia felt the gazes of the assembled crowd, a mix of curious business owners, skeptical investors, and a few familiar faces from the local community who had heard the whispers. She spotted Mr. Sterling across the room, already holding court, his polished veneer of success, radiating confidence, a smug smile on his face as he gestured subtly towards her, a predatory glint in his eyes. Harrison, though not officially invited, lurked near the back, a venomous glare fixed on Amelia. His face a roadmap of resentment and anticipation of her downfall. The challenge began with 2 other local businesses, both presenting cautious, predictable recovery plans. The judges, a panel of 5 formidable figures from finance and industry, listened impassively occasionally, interjecting with pointed questions. The atmosphere was polite but expectant. They were waiting for the main event, the turnaround of the notoriously troubled roadside respite. Then it was Amelia's turn. As she walked onto the stage, a hush fell over the room. She took a deep breath, surveying the faces before her. She saw doubt, curiosity, and in some eyes a clear reflection of the subtle prejudice that had fueled Harrison and Sterling's campaign. This was her moment. "Good morning, esteemed judges, ladies and gentlemen." Amelia began, her voice calm and clear, carrying effortlessly through the microphone. "My name is Amelia Vance, and I am the new CEO of Roadside Respite." She paused, letting the title resonate. For years, Roadside Respite has been known for its struggles, its inefficiencies, and regrettably, its less than stellar customer service. Many of you perhaps have heard the recent rumors, the whispers of financial collapse and operational chaos. Today, I am not here to deny those challenges. I am here to expose their true source and to reveal the future of Roadside Respite. A murmur rippled through the audience. Her directness was unexpected. Sterling shifted in his seat, his smug smile faltering slightly. Harrison's eyes narrowed, a flicker of unease crossing his face. Amelia clicked to her first slide. It wasn't a glossy image of future prosperity. It was a stark, unretouched photograph of Roadside Respite number 3, taken on her first day, the peeling paint, the overflowing trash, the out-of-order signs on the pumps. This, she stated, her voice unwavering, was the state of one of our flagship stations just 2 weeks ago. She then clicked to a second photo, taken just yesterday. The same station, now gleaming pumps, fully functional flowers blooming in newly planted beds. "This," she continued, "is Roadside Respite today, clean, operational, and welcoming." She then launched into her presentation, not with abstract theories but with hard data and undeniable evidence. Her slides were crisp, her graphs undeniable. She detailed the precise financial losses due to neglected maintenance, outdated inventory systems, and employee turnover. She spoke of her immediate actions, repairing pumps, implementing rigorous cleaning schedules, and retraining staff with a focus on genuine customer engagement. She didn't just talk about improvements. She showed the quantifiable results: a 15% increase in sales at Oakhaven in just 2 weeks, a direct correlation to the implemented changes. The judges listened, their expressions slowly shifting from polite skepticism to growing intrigue. Amelia's presentation was clear, concise, and backed by irrefutable facts. She wasn't just talking, she was demonstrating. Then she moved to the heart of her argument. "However," she said, her voice dropping slightly, "our challenges extended beyond internal issues. We faced and continue to face a concerted campaign of sabotage." She clicked to a slide displaying a complex, interconnected web of data, supplier delays, sudden price increases from specific vendors, and perfectly timed employee resignations. These were not random occurrences, she stated, her eyes sweeping across the audience, momentarily locking with Sterling's. His face for the first time showed a flicker of genuine concern. They were orchestrated, designed to cripple Roadside Respite and facilitate a hostile takeover. Harrison at the back of the room let out a nervous cough. Amelia clicked again. The screen now displayed a blurred image of a financial transaction. "Here," she explained, "is a transfer of funds from a shell company to a former Roadside Respite manager just days before his resignation and the subsequent disruption of our supply chain." She clicked again, revealing a clearer, damning image, an email exchange between Harrison and one of the resigned managers, discussing ways to make things difficult for the new management. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Sterling's face was now pale, his earlier confidence completely evaporated. He darted a furious glance at Harrison, who looked like he was about to bolt from the room. "And finally," Amelia said, her voice rising slightly, her gaze piercing, "I have irrefutable evidence of a deliberate campaign to spread misinformation and financially destabilize Roadside Respite." She clicked the slide one last time. The screen showed a recording, a grainy but clear audio file of a phone conversation. It was Mr. Harrison's voice, unmistakable, advising Mr. Sterling on how to manipulate fuel distributors and spread rumors about Roadside Respite's financial insolvency. The audio then shifted to Sterling's voice, calmly outlining his strategy to squeeze out the new inexperienced owner and acquire the chain at a bargain basement price. The room erupted in a furious murmur. The judges who had maintained their stoic expressions now exchanged shocked glances. The media cameras swiveled, focusing intently on Sterling, whose face had gone from pale to a livid red. Harrison, cornered and exposed, tried to push his way out of the room, but a security guard who had been alerted by an earlier subtle signal from Marcus moved to block his path. "This is baseless," Sterling shouted, his voice cracking, trying to regain control. "These are fabricated, a desperate attempt to deflect from her own incompetence." Amelia didn't flinch. "The recordings, Mr. Sterling, were captured by my diligent team member, Mr. Marcus Thorne, a young man who chose integrity over complicity and who meticulously documented every instance of sabotage he witnessed, from broken pumps to deliberate misinformation. He is the true embodiment of Roadside Respite's future." She nodded to Marcus, who, though still trembling, stood a little taller, a flicker of pride in his eyes. Then came the breathless moment. Just as the noise in the room reached a crescendo and a judge raised a hand to call for order, Harrison, in a desperate final act of malice, lunged forward, shouting, "You're a fraud, you failed before and you'll fail again." He revealed a past carefully buried detail from Amelia's early career, a startup venture that had indeed collapsed due to unforeseen market shifts, but which Harrison twisted into a tale of catastrophic personal failure. He had researched her, dug into her past, ready to use it as a weapon. A wave of doubt washed over the audience. The murmur turned into a confused whisper. Had she truly failed before? Was this all a grand, desperate charade? Amelia closed her eyes for a fleeting second, the memory of that past failure, the crushing weight of public scrutiny flashing through her mind. But this time it was different. She was stronger. She had faced true malice. She opened her eyes, fixing Harrison with a gaze that was both pitying and utterly contemptuous. "Yes, Mr. Harrison," Amelia said, her voice ringing with newfound power, silencing the room. "I did fail once. Every entrepreneur who dares to dream big faces setbacks. But the difference between me and you, Mr. Harrison, and indeed Mr. Sterling," she added, turning her gaze to the furious, defeated man, "is that I learned from my failure. I didn't resort to sabotage. I didn't hide in the shadows. I rose again, stronger, wiser, and more determined. My past failures are not a mark of shame. They are a testament to my resilience. Your actions, gentlemen, are a mark of your cowardice and your corruption." She then unveiled her trump card. "And to demonstrate Roadside Respite's commitment to a new era of transparency and ethical business, I am proud to announce a revolutionary partnership we finalized last night." A new slide appeared, displaying a partnership logo with one of the leading solar energy companies in the nation. Roadside Respite will be converting all 6 of its stations to solar power within the next year, reducing our carbon footprint by 80% and becoming the first eco-friendly gas station chain in the region. This is not just about fuel. It's about building sustainable community hubs, offering electric vehicle charging, and creating truly welcoming spaces for every traveler, regardless of who they are or what they drive. The room exploded, not with murmurs of doubt, but with a roar of applause. The judges rose to their feet, their faces alight with admiration. The media cameras flashed relentlessly, no longer focused on Sterling's shame, but on Amelia's triumphant, radiant presence. Sterling stared aghast, his meticulously planned takeover crumbling before his eyes. The solar initiative was a game-changer, a visionary move that would not only save the company millions in the long run, but also redefine its public image. It was a move he, in his short-sighted greed, had never even considered. The audience's reaction was a catharsis, a collective release of tension, and a triumphant validation of Amelia's unwavering spirit. Faces that had been skeptical were now beaming with respect. The initial pity had transformed into outright awe. They weren't just witnessing a business recovery. They were witnessing the vindication of an individual, the triumph of integrity over malice. Amelia Vance, the quiet analyst, the overlooked heir, had not only saved her inheritance, she had redefined what it meant to lead, to innovate, and to succeed against impossible odds. The cheers were deafening, a symphony of recognition for the legend who had indeed returned. The roar of applause that filled the Oakhaven Convention Center was a symphony of vindication for Amelia Vance. It wasn't merely the polite clapping of business associates. It was a genuine, heartfelt outpouring of respect and admiration. As the sound swelled around her, Amelia felt a profound sense of release. a catharsis that washed away years of quiet striving and suppressed ambition. The burden of the past, the weight of expectations, the sting of prejudice, all seemed to dissipate in the wave of public recognition. The judges, their faces beaming, approached her offering effusive congratulations. The media, their cameras still flashing, clamored for interviews, their questions now laced with awe instead of skepticism. Mr. Sterling, his face a mask of utter defeat, stood frozen amidst the celebratory chaos. His meticulously crafted empire of deceit had crumbled in a single public moment. He had envisioned Amelia's public humiliation, a quick and easy acquisition of her inheritance. Instead, he found himself exposed, his reputation in tatters, his predatory tactics laid bare for all to see. He tried to speak, but no words came. The sneering confidence that had defined him for years had utterly vanished, replaced by a desperate, hollow shame. Harrison, meanwhile, fared far worse. As the audio recording of his malicious conspiracy echoed through the hall, a security guard gently but firmly escorted him from the premises. His protests were weak, his bluster evaporated. He was no longer the arrogant manager, but a pitiful figure consumed by bitterness, his face contorted in impotent rage. His professional career was over, his name synonymous with treachery. Within days, the legal repercussions of his sabotage, uncovered by Amelia's meticulous evidence, began to unfold. He faced charges of corporate espionage and fraud, his once comfortable life dissolving into a future of legal battles and likely incarceration. His fate was a stark, fitting punishment for a life built on prejudice and deceit. In the aftermath of the summit, the transformation of Roadside Respite was nothing short of miraculous. The Small Business Turnaround Challenge grant was a welcome injection of capital, but the true prize was the wave of positive publicity. Local news reports highlighted Amelia's resilience and innovative vision. Customers flocked to Roadside Respite stations, drawn by the story of triumph over adversity and the promise of a truly ethical, forward-thinking business. The clean, well-stocked stores, the functional pumps, and the newly enthusiastic staff led by a blossoming Marcus delivered on that promise. Amelia's first priority was to solidify her leadership and rebuild trust within the remaining Roadside Respite team. She held town hall meetings at each station, speaking directly to the employees, acknowledging the difficult times they had endured under old management and outlining her vision for a collaborative, inclusive future. She listened to their concerns, empowered them with new training, and instituted fair wages and benefits, a stark contrast to Harrison's oppressive regime. The change in morale was palpable. Employees, once disengaged and cynical, began to take pride in their work, becoming advocates for the new Roadside Respite. Marcus in particular thrived under Amelia's mentorship. He was officially promoted to assistant regional manager, overseeing operations at 3 of the stations, including Oakhaven. He was instrumental in implementing the new solar energy initiative, coordinating with engineers and contractors, displaying a natural aptitude for project management. His growth was astonishing. The nervous young man who once trembled before Harrison now spoke with confidence and authority, embodying the very spirit of change that Amelia championed. He often found himself reflecting on that first day, the quiet woman in simple clothes who had walked into the gas station and calmly dismantled a tyrant's reign. He had seen the legend unfold, and now he was helping to write its next chapter. One quiet afternoon, a few weeks after the summit, Amelia received a call from Mr. Sterling. She had expected it, bracing herself for another attempt at manipulation or a desperate plea. But his voice, when it came, was devoid of its usual slickness, tinged instead with a heavy dose of humility. "Ms. Vance." Sterling began, his tone uncharacteristically subdued. I owe you an apology. A profound apology." He spoke haltingly at first, then with a surprising degree of sincerity. He admitted to his complicity with Harrison, to his cynical view of her as an easy target, and to his own pride and prejudice. "I misjudged you completely. I saw an opportunity for my own gain and allowed myself to be blinded by assumptions. Your presentation at the summit, your vision for sustainability, it was truly remarkable. You didn't just win. You showed us all what true leadership looks like." He then made a concrete gesture of atonement. "I would like to offer Roadside Respite a genuine, equitable partnership. My chain, Sterling Stop and Go, operates in several key areas where you currently have no presence. I believe a collaborative venture, perhaps sharing resources for the solar conversion or even a joint marketing initiative could benefit both our companies. I'm willing to offer more than just a handshake, Ms. Vance. I'm prepared to make a significant investment at your terms to prove my sincerity and to learn from your example. Amelia listened, her expression unreadable. She recognized the genuine remorse in his voice, the humility that had replaced his arrogance. She also saw the strategic advantage of such a partnership. Sterling's network and resources, if used for good, could accelerate Roadside Respite's expansion exponentially. It was a testament to her victory that her former adversary was now seeking to join her. Mr. Sterling. Amelia finally said, her voice still cautious. Your actions caused significant damage, not just to my business, but to the trust within the industry. Reconciliation will not be easy. However, I believe in second chances, especially for those willing to truly learn from their mistakes. Send me your proposal. I will review it. But be under no illusion, any partnership will be on Roadside Respite's terms, centered on transparency, ethical practices, and a shared commitment to community. The days of backroom deals and sabotage are over. Sterling's relief was palpable. Thank you, Ms. Vance. Thank you. I understand completely. You won't regret this. I look forward to proving myself worthy of your trust. He ended the call, leaving Amelia with a sense of quiet triumph. Her victory was not just in winning the competition, but in forcing her adversary to confront his own flaws and ultimately to become an unlikely ally. The new calm that settled over Amelia's life was not a return to the quiet solitude of her old apartment. It was a vibrant, dynamic piece filled with purpose and connection. Her apartment, while still meticulously organized, now felt truly lived in. She hosted dinners for Marcus and his family, sharing stories and laughter. She found herself attending industry events, not as a silent observer, but as a sought-after speaker. Her insights on sustainable business and ethical leadership valued by peers. One evening, Amelia and Marcus sat in the newly renovated Oakhaven station sipping coffee from branded Roadside Respite mugs. The station hummed with activity, clean and brightly lit, a stark contrast to its previous state. Customers smiled, employees were engaged, and the soft glow of nascent solar panels on the roof hinted at the future. It's incredible, Ms. Vance, Marcus said, looking around with a sense of deep satisfaction. I still remember that first day thinking Mr. Harrison was going to fire me just for looking at him wrong. And then you walked in. He trailed off, shaking his head in wonder. Amelia smiled, a warmth spreading through her. You know, Marcus, sometimes the greatest opportunities come disguised as the toughest challenges. I never intended to own a gas station chain. My life was very different. But Eleanor, she saw something. She forced me out of my comfort zone. She saw the legend. Marcus interjected, a knowing smile on his face. You were always meant for this, Ms. Vance. You just needed a reason to unleash it. Amelia chuckled softly. Perhaps, but I couldn't have done it without you, Marcus. You were my eyes, my ears, my conscience. Your integrity, your willingness to see the truth and act on it. That's what truly made the difference. Marcus blushed, a rare display of vulnerability. I just believed in you, Ms. Vance. You treated me with respect when no one else did. You showed me that a business could be about more than just making money. It could be about doing good. They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, reflecting on the arduous journey. The gas station, once a symbol of prejudice and neglect, had become a beacon of innovation and opportunity. Amelia had not only transformed a struggling business, but had also, perhaps more importantly, transformed herself. The quiet analyst had rediscovered her voice, her power, and her purpose. She was no longer just surviving. She was thriving, her impact extending far beyond the realm of balance sheets and market trends. The future, once a source of apprehension, now gleamed with the promise of endless possibilities. 1 year later, the morning sun, warm and golden, streamed through the expansive glass facade of the newly christened Amelia Vance Community Hub, at what was once Roadside Respite No. 3. The old, grimy gas station was unrecognizable. Rows of gleaming solar panels now adorned its roof, silently harnessing the energy of the day. Inside, the convenience store had been reimagined as a vibrant, airy space. Beyond the pumps, a small, meticulously landscaped park offered picnic tables and charging stations for electric vehicles, a true oasis on the highway. Laughter and conversation filled the air, mingling with the scent of freshly brewed artisanal coffee and warm pastries from the small cafe. Amelia Vance, at 39, was a woman transformed. The quiet composure she once cultivated as a shield now emanated as a radiant confidence. Her days were no longer defined by the sterile clicks of a corporate keyboard or the solitary hum of a refrigerator. They were filled with dynamic meetings, strategic expansions, and deeply rewarding community engagements. Roadside Respite, under her visionary leadership, had blossomed into Respite Green, a pioneering eco-friendly energy and community hub chain that stretched across 3 states with plans for national expansion. The partnership with Sterling Stop and Go, initially fraught with cautious skepticism, had blossomed into a genuinely collaborative venture, with Mr. Sterling humbled and reformed, proving to be a surprisingly effective and ethical business partner, truly committed to the green initiatives. Her personal life, once a stark landscape of self-imposed solitude, was now rich and fulfilling. Her apartment, while still meticulously kept, felt lived in, filled with vibrant art and the occasional spontaneous dinner party with friends. She had found a genuine connection with a brilliant architect she met at an industry conference, someone who admired her vision and shared her passion for sustainable development. Their conversations were lively, their respect mutual, and their companionship a gentle balm to her once guarded heart. On this particular morning, Amelia stood beside Marcus, now the proud and capable director of operations for Respite Green. He was no longer the nervous young man, but a confident leader, his natural intelligence and quiet strength honed by Amelia's mentorship. He had spearheaded the solar conversion project, turning Amelia's bold vision into tangible reality, overseeing every detail with meticulous care. "We just broke ground on the 5th solar installation yesterday," Ms. Vance, Marcus, reported, a proud smile on his face. "If we stay on schedule, we'll be fully solar-powered across all our current locations within 6 months." "Excellent, Marcus," Amelia replied, her eyes sweeping over the bustling hub, a symbol of their shared triumph. "Your dedication has been instrumental in making this dream a reality. You truly embody the spirit of Respite Green." Marcus shrugged modestly, but his pride was evident. "I learned from the best. You showed me what was possible, Ms. Vance. You showed me that a business could be a force for good." This resonated deeply with Amelia. Her journey from corporate analyst to CEO of a green energy empire wasn't just about financial success, it was about purpose. The quiet wisdom of Eleanor Vance, who had seen beyond the grime, had been profoundly prescient. Amelia had not only transformed a decaying business, but had also, perhaps more importantly, embraced a philosophy of paying it forward. Her commitment to this philosophy manifested in tangible ways. Respite Green had launched the Vance Venture Fund, a non-profit initiative dedicated to providing seed funding and mentorship to aspiring entrepreneurs from underserved communities, particularly women and people of color. Amelia personally oversaw the selection process, offering not just financial support, but also invaluable strategic guidance, drawing from her own triumphs and, crucially, her past setbacks. She believed that every ambitious mind deserved a fair shot, regardless of their background or the biases they might face. She regularly gave keynote speeches at business schools and conferences, sharing her incredible story. She spoke candidly about her early career struggles, her quiet ambition, the shock of the inheritance, and the intense battle she faced against prejudice and sabotage. Her talks were always met with standing ovations, not just for her business acumen, but for her honesty, her resilience, and her unwavering belief in the power of integrity. She was a living testament that courage could indeed alter destinies, and that light always found a path even in the deepest darkness. Many of the young women she mentored saw in her the vibrant, ambitious girl from the faded photograph, now fully realized and empowered. One afternoon, a young woman named Chloe, a recipient of the Vance Venture Fund, approached Amelia after one of her talks. Chloe, a brilliant recent graduate from a state university, was struggling to launch her sustainable fashion brand, facing similar skepticism and resource limitations that Amelia had once encountered. "Ms. Vance," Chloe began, her voice filled with admiration, "your story, it gives me so much hope. I feel like I'm constantly hitting brick walls." Amelia smiled warmly, a genuine empathy in her eyes. "Brick walls are just opportunities to find a new path, Chloe. Sometimes you have to build your own door. What are your challenges right now?" They sat for an hour, Amelia listening intently, offering practical advice, connecting Chloe with key contacts, and reminding her of the fierce inner strength she possessed. As Chloe left her face alight with renewed determination, Amelia felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This was the true reward, helping others unlock their own legends. The final image of Amelia's story finds her standing on a gentle hill, overlooking the original Oak Haven Respite Green hub. It's late afternoon, and the setting sun casts a warm golden glow across the solar panels, reflecting like 1,000 tiny mirrors. The station below hums with life. Cars are charging at EV stations, families are enjoying the small park, and the aroma of coffee drifts lazily on the breeze. Amelia smiles a deep, contented smile that reaches her eyes. Her journey had been arduous, fraught with unexpected challenges and a ruthless adversary. But through it all, she had not only reclaimed a lost inheritance, but had also rediscovered her own formidable power. She had transformed a symbol of neglect into a beacon of progress, a testament to what could be achieved when vision met courage and when integrity shone brightest in the face of darkness. The silence that once defined her life had given way to a vibrant symphony of purpose growth and the joyous hum of a world she was finally helping to change. The legend had not merely returned, it had blossomed, inspiring countless others to find their own hidden light. If this story stirred your heart, if it reminds you that courage can alter destinies, and that light always finds a path even in the deepest darkness, please leave a comment. Share this story with those who need inspiration. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss our upcoming stories.